count to 3.
Come with me, and you'll be in a world of
do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do.
You have found Daniel Donato's Lost Highway.
that lost highway.
Howdy, y'all. Welcome to the Lost Highway podcast once again. My voice cracked. Still, I'll be 26 in a couple weeks. I wonder if it'll stop then. Perhaps not, but life still goes on. This is the podcast of all things Cosmic Country. I'm Daniel Donato. Thank y'all for hanging out. There's been this quote that I read this week that has just been blowing my mind because it keeps on coming back into my immediate thought Rolodex, which is one from Carl Jung. It's he said, "Those who look outside dream, and those who look inside awaken." And that's a paraphrasing of sorts. Wow. Like, is that not just so fitting into your mind like a pleasant puzzle piece? Because it does for me. Those who look outside dream, those who look inside awaken. And then my initial reaction to that quote was like, oh yeah, I gotta look inside more. Like, of course, I always should be looking inside. But then it's like, want to look outside too. Want to spend time looking outside. Really for the fact, because you can set goals by looking outside. Like, you can find things that you want to aim at. You can find dreams that you have not yet realized in your own self, in your own reality, that have been achieved in this quote-unquote outside, that you can therefore take to the inside and do the proper work, and hopefully you get to that place. Those who look outside dream, those who look inside awaken. You gotta look both places, and you gotta spend time looking. It's crazy. It's a wild game. I feel like music is one of the most harmonious and perfect examples of those who look outside dream and those who look inside awaken. It's crazy. If you ever watch me play on stage, I can't help but look outward. I just can't help. I can't really spend that much time looking at the guitar. It's either my eyes are closed or I'm looking directly outward. And it might be a form of quote-unquote dreaming. And while simultaneously anything that's coming from a musical place is coming from inside. It's a very wild trade that we have from inside to outside. Again, those who look inside awaken, those who look outside dream. Keep looking, my friends. Look on both spectrums. Look outside so you can find your goals and find where your potential may lie. And then look inside to find the shadow that you can integrate into your own life. And so it's like, man, it is a wild thing. So aside from that quote that's been blowing my mind, everything's good. We're picking up a lot of shows down here in Nashville. We're working on a new Cosmic Country album right now that I've sent it to a lot of friends of mine, a lot of peers. They're digging it. They're saying it's really good. I'm going to take that as a good sign. Aside from that, can't wait for y'all to hear this record. We are almost 50 episodes into this podcast. We're touring this year. Life is looking good. Y'all stay patient, persistent, positive. Stay cosmic. When I was 12 years old, I discovered Robben Ford's guitar playing on YouTube, and it changed the way I approach holding, playing, interacting with the instrument. I've been a fan of his for 14 years. And it was in this room, I think it was like October of 2019, Robben called me on my cell phone out of the blue. I'd never met him before, and asked if we'd want to do a record together. And we had just finished up doing around 100 shows, and it was perfect timing. And so in December of 2019, we went and recorded some songs at a studio here in town, Sound Emporium. And we released the record in August 7th, 2020. It's a record called A Young Man's Country, and Robben produced it. Unbelievable experience of my life to be able to take that opportunity and put it on vinyl and put it out into the DSPs of the world and for everyone to go and hear it forever. Astounding. Robben has been one of the most splendid mentors I've ever had the opportunity to interact with. Fantastic friend and a marvelous mind. Truly, sincerely. This conversation that we captured here is the utmost proof of that. He's working on a new record right now. The process behind the record is unlike one that he's ever done before. It's really cool. Talking about a lot of early music history involving in Robben's career in particular. Talking about cryptocurrency, all kinds of things. Truly, the one and only Mr. Robben Ford.
From a friend of mine, Roscoe Beck, the bass player.
Yep.
And
Okay.
it, as a 12-string, was fun.
What'd you pay for it, if you don't mind?
$2,500, which is a crazy great price.
That's wild.
I tried to give him $3, and he wouldn't take it.
That's a good friend.
So, anyway, like I tried using it on a couple of recordings. We tried using it on the new album, and I don't know if anything's going to wind up on the record. But anyway, basically, I left that at Casey's Purple House studio because I didn't really have any use for it.
Yeah.
And so I was out there just a couple of days ago working, and it was hanging on the wall.
Yep.
Wow. Like it had been for almost 2 years.
Get out of here, yeah.
And so I just pulled it down and strung it for 6 strings and fell in love with it.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
The same thing happened to me this past weekend.
Oh.
Was leaving for a session, and there's this jazz master I have that has 2 layers of finish on it. There's a gold, like a desert gold, and then there's this sparkle red non-factory fin on it, and it's an all rosewood neck. And I haven't played that guitar since August of 2019. Didn't pick it up one time.
It was yours, in your possession
guitar,
already.
in my possession,
Right.
sitting out on the rack. I see it every day. And it's these guitars you never think to play.
Yeah.
And I'm leaving for a session that we have, and I'm thinking, Jazzmaster, why not? Let's try it. Right? And we plug it in, and it's still in tune. And you hear it through the headphones, and it's coming back from the amp room. And you get the EQs just right, and you're like, my God, this instrument was just what I needed. This was just the thing I needed to be inspired.
The Jazzmaster has the little white pickups, right?
Yeah.
It's rectangular white pickups.
Rectangular and white, made just for that guitar too. Usually used for surf music.
Yeah.
The Ventures and all that.
Well, I think those guys, weren't they using Jaguars?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Both.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, those were the surf guitars.
Mosrite guitars too, which are really haven't stood the test of time, quite like Fender and Gibsons have. That must be a funny thing to see. You're still sticking to Les Pauls. You're still sticking to hollow body guitars. And it's funny to see all these new guitars come through all these years that don't really quite stand the test of time. And yet you go back to vintage instruments, always messing with new ones. Just before we turn this on too, you're like, it's a long road to get there. What do you think about that?
I've been trying to get the one great Les Paul,
Yep.
And I've never really had it. Every Les Paul I've ever had, I've eventually sold.
Yeah.
Because the only ones I had initially were all new guitars. I bought new ones. I had a 54. Had a 54.
Yeah.
All original. So it's the P90s,
Not the same.
and they're just a little limited,
They
They're
really are.
Yeah, they're not as versatile.
And too noisy too for recording a lot of the time.
Well, there's always that buzz.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I loved that guitar, and I used it on recordings. I used it on the road too. But again, it's just, the P90s, you can't just take that one guitar to the gig.
Yeah, that's so true.
So that's it. You want that one guitar you can just take to the gig and everything's good.
I know.
Yeah. So my Telly's like that.
Yes,
but
it
it's
is.
a little bit of a struggle to play Telecasters for me. They're just.
Why is that?
It has to do with the bridge, the tailpiece.
The way it feels.
Yeah, I think the tension, has of sitting across those screw thingies.
Oh, those do suck.
and then the lip of the tailpiece itself. I'm always hitting it. I just can't.
Sure.
Yeah.
They do these. There's a company out of Glendale, California, called Glendale, and they do these great handmade bridges that are called double walled. So where they essentially take that steel construct that is that Telecaster bridge, they scoop it out, so you can set your palm on the higher part of the bridge, but then the lower part of the bridge, they scoop it out and you can really pick in there. It doesn't quite get in your way. It makes for a better experience.
You're talking about the little wall.
The wall
is reduced like that. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
I need to Call them.
I'll put you in charge. They're great. And they do it better. That's the thing I saw this week too, was we were tracking some songs, and I just went and got the Telecaster set up, several of them before tracking. And the intonation on those instruments is tough, man. I mean, that's a real thing. Do you experience that with your vintage one?
Not terribly, no.
Wow.
Yeah, that guitar, it's the only guitar. I've not had any other guitar as long as I've had that guitar, you know.
How long have you had it?
Well, I bought it in 92 or 3.
Oh, yeah, that is a long time. So we're getting on close to 30 years with that instrument.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I have been playing it the whole time. And there's no other guitar, again, that I've been playing that whole time. It's the only one. So that has to say something.
That says a lot of things.
Yeah, because I never even consider myself a telly guy, you know.
Bloomfield was the telly guy, though. At least for me, when I was first, like, who's a telly guy? And you get through the modern examples. You get through Brad Paisley. You get through Keith Urban, and you get through the more modern examples.
Well, those guys, you know, started on it and kept playing it. Because Bloomfield, he'd only played that guitar for like 2 years.
And then he went to Les Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing that's
it's
weird,
just that sound that he created.
That's the thing, man.
I mean, that's where my sound comes from, is that. Which is
From that
probably
era.
why I have a Telecaster, but I never thought about it, you know.
Isn't that crazy, right?
Yeah.
Like, so do you think, in regards to some of the first guitar tones you had heard, was Bloomfield early in that repertoire?
First one.
So there we go.
Yeah.
Isn't that's the realest thing? Is
Ground zero.
The ground zero influence is real. Like the first 5-10 artists we hear, they give us permission to like love that tone. You know, it's very that.
I was about to say, you know, like in those days, in the 60s, you know, I was about to say that it seemed like everybody had a good tone. But I don't know that that's completely true, but certainly anybody who could really play, you know, I mean, Bloomfield had great tone, Eric Clapton, clearly Jimi Hendrix, you know, and all the blues players.
Yeah. They all had great tone. Even, Even Bloomfield on a duosonic, which, you know, isn't the best guitar prep for like an adult man to be playing. His tone was still warm and it worked.
Where did he play that?
Beautiful. There's these early sessions, and you can see, I think they did a Columbia
So before the
record
first
somewhere.
Butterfield album?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. These are, or they might have been cut in Chicago too. And he's wearing this like all blue outfit, and it's these, you know, it's a very much so a vintage way of tracking, you know, the lead singer singing closest to the condenser mic and background singer singing behind the singer.
I see.
There's no isolation. And
Yeah.
he's got this duosonic on with that anodized pick guard, and, you know, like that classic anodized pick guard where part of it is gone and just the aluminum section is showing. And I don't know what recordings they are, but you can hear Bloomfield regardless of what it is. Him doing his, it's that human, it's that personality.
No one had sounded like that before, and no one has sounded like that since. I mean, there, of course, a lot of people have emulated him. I mean, I definitely sounded like Mike Bloomfield at one time, you know. But
you also sound so much like yourself.
Well, I always equate that to largely, you know, like starting as a blues player, and tone was essential. And you didn't get it from effects, you know, which so many guitar players grow up. They build their sound going through a pedal board.
Oh yeah.
So that's a thing. So
absolutely,
you know,
and there's some very cool tones that come from that.
Sure,
it's a different thing.
Well, if you don't learn how to play without it, I think it must be, you know, I don't know.
Yeah,
I just don't know that you can possibly
really
have a good tone. Do you have a good tone? You know what I mean?
There's the truth. And when I was complimenting you about, we were just playing through that refinish Les Paul that you have through this Vibrolux, and it's like, yeah, the amp and the guitar sound great, but it is you ultimately that creates the inspiring air that comes through those speakers.
Yeah,
you know, when you
the individual.
Yeah, the individual. That's the most wild thing.
Yeah. And I mean, amps were really well made back then, man.
Not the same now. Not the same now.
No, that amp was terrible until I had it modded.
Right.
You know, so.
Yeah.
you couldn't buy that off the floor, and I sure wish you could.
You could at a hand wired custom shop price, and it's going to cost you the same that a vintage one would cost.
Exactly.
And that's a weird thing too. It's like, what do you think about the idea of less is more in regards to not less is more in gear, but you essentially just need better gear.
Yeah.
And less things blocking you from that initial source. Like that seems to be a huge part of your sound.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, big time. I mean, I really just want to plug into an amplifier with a little reverb, and I'm good to go. If everything,
I know, that's the thing. Zach Reynolds, the engineer here in town, was telling me that I think you were with him the other day doing some guitars, and you guys spent several hours just testing out different amps. Do you remember that at all?
No, not exactly. I don't think so.
Okay.
We might have, like I've had 2 or 3 heads that I've been taking in there over to Blackbird.
Oh, okay.
And
are you tracking at Blackbird for a record? Or?
It was overdub for my new album.
Right.
And
which you cut in a pretty interesting way, right?
Yeah.
Piece by piece, and
yes,
you didn't go live full band.
It basically the engineer and myself, built the tracks and then added the instruments, and I've never done that.
Yeah, that's so out there.
Never done that.
What was the idea behind doing that?
Well, I got together with some first-class musicians,
sure,
and tried playing together, in a room with a relatively new piece of music that was incomplete, but I just wanted to try some ideas, and see if this thing worked,
Sure.
And we did it twice, and at the end after that, because I was paying for it, I'm like, I just went, I think I need to have people just do exactly what I want them to do.
Right.
I couldn't let them influence the music, in other words. I had to conceive what each instrument was going to do.
Yeah, totally. Especially if it's not fully done before you bring it in.
And they don't know what you think.
They only know what they think, and once they have an expectation of how the thing's going to go, then it's hard to influence them otherwise, especially if you're not very certain.
Well, you want that of them, though, right?
You do.
You want a guy to be able to come in and just, thanks, man. Yeah, that's great.
I'm sure you've been that guy to other people's projects.
Well, and
times.
Others, I did do one session on this for this record. I did 2, but I did one day and cut 3 things, and I don't know if you know this drummer named Nate Smith.
I love Nate Smith.
Did you know he moved to town?
I've heard he has moved to town.
Yeah, he moved here last July.
He is so good.
Yeah. And when I heard he moved to town, Brian Allen, the bassist, told me. And I said, you have his number? He said, yep. So I wrote a couple of songs.
Oh, wow. Come on.
For him. I mean, knowing he would be playing. You know? So there was somewhat of a tailoring up from my side toward him,
Okay.
Anyway, he was, I called him up, can you do a session? And And Anton Fig, not Fig, Anton Nesbitt. Do you know Anton Nesbitt?
I know Anton Fig, but not Nesbitt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anton Fig's the drummer.
Yeah.
Anton Nesbitt is a great bass player here in town, and I knew what he would do. And so I called him up, and man,
whoa!
I didn't have to tell people anything.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And it was wonderful.
Yeah. That is when it happens, man.
Yeah.
That's when it happens. People don't really do music like that in that genre that you're doing a lot right now here in town. At that high level of a player, everyone in the room, they know where their strengths and their weaknesses are. And that's the most beautiful thing.
Sure is.
It really is. But
a full-on band that's been playing together a whole bunch.
Yeah, man.
Like you and your band when we cut your record.
Yeah, that's a different thing.
And it was so wonderful how the sound, was. That record is a phenomenon to me. Your record is absolutely a phenomenon to me. I think it's
really?
Absolutely. It's the best sounding record I've heard in years.
What?
In my opinion.
Oh my God.
And it was because of that aspect of the, a band that knew exactly what they were doing together in a great room with a great engineer. You put up the mics.
And you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Everybody knows, what they're doing, in the right place, and it just kills me the way that record sounds. It does. And anybody I play it for, they hear it. They know exactly what I'm talking about. It's the sound of it, the energy of it.
Yeah, man.
So beautiful.
Thank you. I listen to it all of the time.
That's
so
great.
Weird.
I'm very happy for you to say that. That's really cool.
Me too.
Because I'm not afraid to like my own music. A lot of people are like...
Yeah, they are.
They don't want to hear it, or they don't even like it.
That's the weirdest thing. Is why would you put something out into the world you're not proud of? It's different if it's a live video and it's like, oh, that's not my best gig, whatever.
Oh, for sure.
But that's not for you to decide. But
that's funny.
It's so true, right? But music that legitimately you don't like, you have all the control in the world to not put out.
Mm-hmm.
When you look back at the wealth of work that you worked on, you're proud of it all?
I am. There's only one record I've done that I kind of disappointed by.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I shouldn't say it because I don't want anybody to not buy it.
People might actually go listen to it and be like, maybe I disagree with Robben. I love how the sleeping bulldog in the background actually is the best noise ever. Do not be. It's awesome.
It's quite all right.
She's awake too.
She snores and she's awake. That's all right. I love that.
So the record is Blue Moon. I don't know if you've ever heard that record.
Absolutely. Yeah. Come on. So what is it about that? Because that seems so in line with how I would think of what you do. It's like...
Well, it was certainly recorded with musicians I was very familiar with.
Yeah.
In a style that I was familiar with.
Yeah.
And cutting tracks went pretty well. But when it came to the overdub stage... I couldn't get a good guitar sound.
My God, that's the realest thing.
Just drove me nuts.
Yeah.
Great gear.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had that gold top Les Paul, and it just sounds gnarly, and you can hear the buzz, of the pickups.
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't get a sound. So when I hear that record, and I don't, I actually will check out almost every other record I've done. But that one, I just don't want to hear it. It just makes me feel weird,
Yeah, absolutely. I listened back to these early Grateful Dead recordings, and you hear them talk about we had this band formation then, and our ideas about playing music then weren't as evolved as they came to be in 1972. And you listen to 1968 to 72, and these are different humans. Mm-hmm. And maybe the concept, and you hear it in Miles Davis, right, is that you work and evolve as a human out loud.
Yeah.
When you're a musician. That's what you do.
Very good.
You're living out loud.
That's a good one.
For the whole world to see.
Yeah, if you're evolving. Some don't.
Some choose not to.
They sound exactly the same,
That's very scary.
Yeah, I know.
That was the thing that you showed me, which was the concept of, listen, it's not about the things that you're playing and that you're trying to execute. It's really actually going to be a matter of the things that you choose to not play. Mm-hmm. That speak all for the space and all that, and that's where you can evolve and change as a player, right? Because so many players get into these ruts of I need to learn modes or I need to learn all these standards, and it's but you're not even thinking about how you sound as a human or the things how is your touch on the guitar actually affecting you, and you made me so aware of all these elements.
Nice.
It was I think we had that reef in Les Paul on the solo, and I was watching through a video. I was we were trying to nail a solo on this John Prine song, and it just wasn't the vibe. And then you went in there, and I was like, Robben, why don't you try taking a pass on it? You took one pass on it must have been 32 bars, something like that. Not very long, but definitely a long jam solo. Mm-hmm. And he's like, oh my God, that is how someone who knows how to speak with music goes and plays. And that is very much the thing. It was how to evolve it's taking away things. It's not always about adding things.
Yeah. Now I'm understanding the point even more clearly. Because for me, my example, whenever I talk about that, try to explain that to people generally, is the painter Matisse. Did we talk about that?
No, we haven't talked about Matisse.
Matisse is my favorite painter. And So I was in France. I think I was in his hometown or something.
Okay.
Maybe we were in Nice. You know, all those guys painted the beach from their hotel room window. You know, all those, you know,
Everyone's painting from
Mediterranean,
windows. Starry Night. What's
French
happening
paintings,
there?
you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, I went to an exhibit of Matisse, and it started from the beginning and went all the way through to the end of a certain period. And the end of that period, he was losing his eyesight, you know, like people do when they get older, you know.
Sure.
And this is why Renoir, you know, his paintings got blurry toward the end, and he painted what he saw. He didn't like pretend that that's not what he saw. He was painting what he saw. So you have blurry flowers.
What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And he was totally cool with it, you know.
Yeah, you got to.
But also Degas, not Degas, but who's the guy who painted the lilies? Do you know Isabella? You know the lilies? Who's that guy? Can't think of his name.
Yeah, I don't know.
Very famous series of paintings.
But he's French.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure.
So anyway, so I see this, and it's like, and it ends with his blurry paintings, like this exhibit, you know. And then I just thought about what it is he did after that. He went, screw it, and he painted really simple, large things.
What?
That's where he painted those things. I don't know, maybe you haven't seen a lot of French Impressionistic painting, or modern. But, you know, he would have a huge blue, you know, and then he'd paint a big yellow man figure. Huh. No face, just, you know, like a kid would draw.
Like low resolution shapes and colors. Yeah.
Like just like if you made a turkey with your hand drawing, you know?
Sure.
And a big red star.
Get out.
So he literally reinvented himself, and I think that he basically invented graphic art.
Right. What's your basis for that concept on why he would invent graphic art?
Because those types of things hadn't been quite done yet. You know, like large impressions. You know, like graphic art. I kind of think of even like wallpaper or wrapping paper. Big images. You know that. You know, serve a particular function.
Sure.
Simple images that make a statement.
Yes. You know? Yes.
And
yes.
I have a book on him, and toward the end of the book, there's, you know, in his old age, you know, there's a picture of him, and he's lying in a kind of a narrow bed, up against a wall, like in the corner, like this.
Yeah.
You know. And there's this big canvas.
Okay.
And he has a long brush. He's laying in bed, and he's got this big stick with a brush on the end. Yeah. He's doing this.
What is, you know? Seriously?
Yeah.
So he wouldn't stop.
He reinvented himself. He's like, this is what you do when you can't play fast. Well, play slow. Yeah. Man. Really good.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
So the painter's always there.
Yeah, you're so right.
So you run into physical, you know, inhibitions, then you change. You know?
You have to change. But it's the way in which you relate to the forces of life that impose themselves on you. It's the way in which you relate to those that actually create the beauty in the individual.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's the way he chose to relate through his own impositions that he had. Mm-hmm. That is a wild thing. You hear about that with Wes Montgomery. You know, starting at guitar at a later age and approaching it from a place where conventions on that, a way we would normally play guitar, singular notes, the way he did octave strumming, and that was an individual using his own inhibitions to create a unique style. That was an advantage. That's a wild thing.
Yeah, and Matisse said he paid Renoir a visit. And Renoir was
see what that was like.
Renoir was sort of the reigning master of French painting at that time.
Yeah,
and old, you know. And he said, "So I went to see the old master today," and he goes, "I've decided to let art have the last word."
Whoa! What do you think he means by that?
Well, to me, I thought it was like addressing, all the life issues. How do you relate to, like, in other words, death?
Okay.
He decided to let art have the last word,
So do you think that's relating to art in the sense of a servitude for it up until where you can't do it
Devotion
anymore?
to art,
The devotion to it.
Yeah.
That is the realist thing.
As this is my life, in other words. I'm an artist. I'm going to be an artist till the end. That kind of a thing. There's a lot of power in that,
In that, having that intention, I think Muhammad Ali said
I hope this isn't bad stuff for your program.
No, my listeners love these meta concepts. That's all we think about.
Oh, cool.
The abstract and
Great.
how it relates to music. And there was this. I read this quote on Instagram. There's so many great quotes on there. If you can choose to let social media be a bad thing, you can also choose to let it be a nice inspiration machine. And there's a page that posts only good quotes, and it was Muhammad Ali. It was along the lines.
Now
of
we're
him,
talking.
Right. Along the lines of him saying something, when you identify your spiritual intention, everything you do becomes a prayer. So like everything you do becomes compounded interest into the succession of that feedback cycle that you're living in.
Yeah.
And creating from that space and working in that space and living in that space. Like on that level. That is the realest thing.
That's it. That's exactly the same thing.
Right.
It's exactly the same thing.
When do you think that was for you? Because you are just such a lucky person to have been born in the area you were at the time you were. I say it to you.
That was fortunate.
Every time we get together, how jealous I am.
Yeah. No, that was very fortunate. Yeah.
The first time we sat down over BLTs, we talked about concerts you'd seen, and it was...
All of them.
We're talking about such a small portion of people to also have been gifted with the inspiration and ability to play music, or the work ethic to be able to learn. Like, what a lucky experience. Like,
yeah, for sure. And fortunately, I had an older brother who had a car. Because I was 14. I didn't get my driver's license till about 16, right? So for a couple of years there, I was riding down to San Francisco from my Northern California town to Fillmore Auditorium and Winterland and Carousel Ballroom, Family Dog, Avalon Ballroom.
Family Dog was, in particular,
that
one of
was
the most happening
Family
places.
Dog actually was a promotion company.
Yeah.
And I think I don't think there was a
Stanley Mouse,
venue.
right?
Well, it's that San Francisco scene. Yeah, they were promoting all those shows probably. Big Brother and the Holding Company,
Jefferson
Grateful Dead.
Airplane.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Family Dog. And I think the Avalon Ballroom was kind of their main, or maybe it was the Carousel Ballroom.
Where would you see the album art along town, just posted? That's the thing.
See the album art?
Yes, or the not the album art, rather the show art. These posters they would do are still famous today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we were in Northern California. I don't know. I think we knew about the shows because they were advertised in the San Francisco Chronicle. So that was the paper.
Yeah.
And we would always get the San Francisco Chronicle and check out what was going on, And there was always something that you wanted to see, know?
Yeah.
I mean, this is ridiculous, Paul Butterfield Blues Band,
Yeah.
Cream, Hendrix, The Who,
What?
I mean, everybody.
What was it?
And they were playing all the time,
Surely you thought, though, this can't last. This can't be the thing forever. Like, this has to be a boom of music. Yeah. That's another thing,
I
too.
was 15. I'm like, this is great. That's all. This is great.
That's great. You listen to like the Miles Davis at the live Miles Davis on the West Coast at Fillmore.
Oh,
and it's like, my God, there is something had to have been in the air, in the water, on like a vibrational level for everyone who was like in the collective consciousness of music at that time.
Well, that was the 70s, I think. I think that had to be the 70s.
Early.
Yeah.
Right.
72.
Okay.
Or maybe even 3.
Sure.
Possibly. Because I don't know. The Fillmore closed at one point, for quite a long time. I can't remember when. I'm going to look that up. But, so that was the densest, his music, that was the densest period right there, right?
Yeah.
So
It's
I didn't see that band.
Yeah, I don't even know who. I think Chick Corea was playing.
No,
There's
no keyboard.
There's no keyboard.
It's all guitars. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, probably a Gibson guitar.
We should find out.
Yeah, that would be something. Some of these podcast hosts have people who have.
Oh, you're using your phone?
Oh yeah, let's do it. They usually have people who look things up for them. Let's see, actually.
Yeah, 72.
So we have Fillmore. So I'm looking at Miles Davis, Fillmore West.
Yeah.
Yeah, Black Beauty. This is the one. It's April 10, 1970.
70. Okay.
Yeah. Tio Macero produced it.
Sure.
And it came out after Bitches Brew,
Yeah.
which was probably recorded in New York, huh?
Yes.
Yes. So Chick Corea,
He's on it, huh?
Steve Grossman.
Yeah, the tenor player out there. Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Dave Holland.
So there's no guitar player.
So
I'll have to revisit that record, man.
yeah, it doesn't look like there is.
Okay, I was wrong.
Because I think that was the thing that made me click on it was, we click on records now, which is weird.
Oh, click on it.
You have to click on
I
records.
clicked on it.
Yeah. That's a weird thing.
Have you ever clicked on that record?
Yeah. No one was saying that in 1970.
No.
Are we going to click on this record? So
vinyl, man.
that's the thing too. That
Yeah.
is really.
Album covers.
It kind of has a similar aesthetic to Super Session. I'm looking at the album cover right now.
Yeah.
Which, the old Al Cooper, Mike Bloomfield.
Well, and it's Columbia Records, too. They're both Columbia.
Right.
Might have been the art department's having a moment.
Okay. Yeah. Man, Columbia was having a real investment in that improvisational community of players.
Yeah.
But it seems like that's all that was happening. And kind of the advent of American improvisation within a rock format, something that wasn't very East Coast, but it was very West Coast. And it was very much borrowing from bebop scales, but then it also has a lot of chordal simplicity, this improvisational era. Even what Miles was doing on that record, like chordally speaking, they really vamp on one chord for 7-8 minutes, which is his vein of music.
Absolutely.
Man. I mean, that is the thing, right?
Yes. And it's a 12-tone palette,
One chord, but 12 tones?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one note on the bass and 12 tones, 11 more tones.
Do you think that's influenced in some way from the same vein that James Brown would simply just loop?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Just with the harmonic, expansiveness of, those guys, those musicians,
Those humans.
were incredibly, sophisticated musicians, Before I forget, because we were talking about Columbia Records and, the improvisational period there,
Yeah.
There's a book you should read, man.
Oh, come on.
I don't know how into jazz you are exactly.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Super.
Okay.
Not super.
Well, so the history of this will not be anything you're familiar with. Then.
That's even better.
For me, I've heard all the records in there almost, not all of them, but anyway, it's the story of Impulse Records is the book, and I'm going to give it to you.
Oh, I would love that.
Yeah, and
I would love that.
It's basically Bob Thiel was the kind of the hero producer for. He's the guy who really took Impulse, forward on the business side, Oh no, it's called The House That Train Built.
Okay.
Trane.
Sure.
And it's the history of Impulse Records. And Bob Thiel is the main character, Although it moves on beyond that. But anyway, you'll read the history of exactly that period of time. It's a cool representation of that period,
Yeah.
Talking about other record companies and producers and stuff.
It's like it seemed even though that humans at that time were into longer improvisational. With where we're at now, a guitar player today is oftentimes looking for a sound bite, a 30-second, 15-second. What is this person? What can they do? Oh, I like that follow. I don't like that swipe. Where then, let's go see the show. Let's see this 2.5-hour show. Let's see a 2-hour set. and see it in person. There was the advent of that improvisational era. You were directly
I was in
there. That is a beautiful thing.
That was very cool.
I really believe it to be this too. People, we were just at some point the other day. They're like, "How's Robben doing?" And he's great, And they're like, when Robben's around, there is a different vibe, and they can't quite explain it, and it's only in a positive light. And I tell them it's like I think he has radiation poisoning from literally being alive in the most pungent and most inspired era of American music. Like,
maybe we could find another way of putting it, but
like it's true. It's almost like you were born in this weird wrinkle of time, and you had just the right interests and the right opportunities to see the most supreme sources of purity that guitar and music could offer at the time.
I feel like the only thing that I missed that I really regret, I never saw Coltrane.
Oh, I'd never.
No.
Yeah.
And I've never seen Sonny Rollins either, and that's a regret.
Yeah.
But
Miles is pretty close.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Like that is a whole legion of excellence.
The first time I saw Miles Davis was at that same period when he did, it would have been a little after. Anyway, I think it was 1972. And the band... see, I'm very confused about this with that Fillmore record.
Yeah,
the timing, I believe you. You said 1970.
In 1970, yes.
Yeah, I mean...
No, actually, check this out. Recorded in 1970, released 1973.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a little
Does that make more
understandable. But
even
the
that's
thing
weird,
is,
too. Why would you hold on to that for 3 years?
Well, what I think of is the Isle of Wight.
Okay. Yep.
Electric Miles, right? So that is... Can you look that up?
Yeah, I'd love to. So, yeah.
Yeah. Miles Davis.
Electric Miles is...
Electric Miles, that's it. Yeah.
I mean...
When was that?
So...
Because that might have been like 68 or 69.
Electric Miles... It's oddly enough not coming out.
I thought it was 1970.
So that's coming up as... You're not talking about Bitches Brew Live.
No, it's after.
70.
Isle of Wight?
Yeah. 1970 Isle of Wight Music Festival.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
So at that time, he was completely clean.
No drugs.
Yeah.
Was he sober for religious reasons?
No.
Okay.
He didn't want to die.
Oh, so just logistical.
He was very, he had gotten very, very messed up on drugs and, alcohol and everything. Just his whole lifestyle. So he had met Cicely Tyson, and Cicely Tyson basically got him to clean up, and he became not vegan, but what's the other thing?
Pescatarian? Vegetarian?
No, macrobiotic.
What is that indeed?
Microbiotic diet.
Okay.
It is vegetarian.
Yeah.
Macrobiotic diet, I think. And
in 1970?
Yeah.
So that's very forward. It's a very progressive way of living your life in that era, I'm assuming. Yeah.
And it was her who got him to do it.
Wow.
And it only lasted like about 8 months or something.
Okay. He tried. He can't blame him.
But he was young enough, I guess, to bounce back quickly because Isle of Wight, he looks fantastic. And he's playing great. And I saw him, it would have been just a little after that because Chick Corea left the band and it was just Keith Jarrett.
Okay. Yeah.
And Gary Bartz was on alto. And, Ayrton, Jack DeJohnette, and Michael Henderson, Michael Henderson, bassist. And
a very formidable lineup.
My God.
That he had great consistency. He'd been playing with those players.
Yeah. Oh, so Michael Henderson came in after the guy who's on Isle of Wight. I can never remember his name. British bassist.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was a club in San Francisco. A club, mind you, know. And
200 people at most.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
packed.
Yeah.
But it's Miles Davis. And he's playing for 200 people. You know what I mean? In San Francisco. This just makes no sense to me. But
right.
Anyway, so I'm right here, and he's right there.
So what? Literally 5 feet. You're
even 5 feet.
You're front row.
Yeah,
You're as
and
close.
almost up against the little 1 foot high stage.
Yeah, which isn't really even. Yeah. No
it was
way.
ridiculous, man.
Are you serious?
It's just. It was
You have radiation
ridiculous.
poisoning. Like there's no way you
guess
saw
that's it.
that much greatness in front of you. That it with the potential of greatness that you had inside of you. That's why you would follow that muse, and that's why it's like there's no way you couldn't be great. There's just no way that to see Hendrix, to see Clapton, to see Miles Davis, and to be that close and to play with a lot of these people as well.
Well,
to be
it was a great time to be a guitar player. Clearly, I mean, that's Clapton, Bloomfield, Hendrix, Jimmy Page.
Oh, my God.
Everybody was
prime BB King.
Huh?
Prime BB King.
Prime.
So, when he was on fire, when he was mobile, when he was making money.
And who?
BB King.
BB King, yes, of course. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Yeah, prime BB King. That's what you said. Yeah, he was 40.
That's young.
I know.
Yeah, that's the thing.
This is the best you could be.
I know. I wonder, do you think looking back, like, there must have been some form of like a consciousness uplifting kind of a thing? Like musically speaking?
Well, I mean, there was an entire cultural movement happening at that time. Yeah. And it seemed like everyone was excited by it and attuned to it. I mean, it was the hippie culture primarily, It's San Francisco, Fillmore Auditorium.
Yeah, very one place where it happened too.
It was like, love, Summer of Love, 1968, I mean, beads, incense, marijuana, other things.
Oh, yeah, other things. Yeah, that's true.
And well, anyway, I'll stop right there.
Oh, no, please.
Well, there were drugs that became like, more destructive, cocaine,
Right.
Most people weren't using cocaine. They were not. It was very peaceful.
Right.
Like, it was peace and love, man.
Like,
it really was. It's just unbelievably. You'd go in there and everybody was riveted. We were talking about people who were kind of more interested to live performance and lengthy shows.
Absolutely.
And people playing for a long time. Well, to me, to everyone else too. The jam band movement is basically that. So,
The psychedelic experience combined with live music.
And people still do that, right? I mean, they do play.
All
people
of the
are
time.
out there playing.
It is very alive. It's constantly changing, and it's very intelligent people.
Yeah.
Oftentimes that are part of the fan base that are just hyper curious and have a love for music. And it's got to be some form of a spiritual distillation in the most transparent and human way possible. That's really happening. Spiritual exchange, rather. It's very
between the musicians and the audience.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it felt like back then. It was like that. It was like, man, this thing was on.
Well, you've been on both sides of the glass.
Yeah.
Or the stage, rather.
Yeah.
The PA speakers.
Sure.
You got to witness greatness and then also be part of the production of greatness. And that's an unbelievable opportunity. And that's very, very wild.
Well, just never stopped doing it, Picked up a guitar and kept playing it. Which is the key.
To not stop.
That you don't do other things,
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is hard for people because, you got to make a living,
Yeah. Well,
I got lucky early.
Yeah.
From that point of view,
So you think the non-stopping?
That was all I was going to do. And there's great power in that,
It comes back to Matisse, right?
Well, that's sort of the end game.
Yeah, right. So being a servant of the thing, of whatever it is you're doing, and doing that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's critical that you do it when you're young.
Okay.
Absolutely critical. I mean, you are a fine example of this. You decided you were playing the guitar, and you devoted yourself to it, and that's what you do.
I feel like it decided for me.
Well,
almost.
you didn't want to do anything else.
I couldn't even.
think of anything else.
Can't even think of anything else. And that's the thing that I'm on this weird crux of now, you know, which in full transparency, it's great to talk to you about, where it's like, well, I think now some days, oh man, this is a really long life.
Yeah.
Like, this is very long. And it's like, this is what I'm going to do. You know, and it's...
Isn't that great?
Well, I think that. I do, but only recently have I thought this is also kind of scary.
Yes, it is.
Like, it's kind of a scary thing to trust, but I think it's a good thing, is what I'm arriving at.
I think it's the only way that it can be successful.
Okay. What's your thought on that statement? What's your basis on that?
I think you can trust, you know, in our case, the music. You can trust the music. It'll take care of you, man.
That's what I think when I'm in the presence of literally my heroes, you know, yourself on that list included, where it's like things really just happen. If you take care of the work takes care of you.
Yeah. That's a fair exchange. Oh. It's an equal exchange. I mean, which makes a lot of sense.
It kind of does, doesn't it? Yeah, you're right.
It's action, reaction, you know, or, you know, however you want to, you know, put your energy into that, and then you get some of that back. You know?
Oh, wow, man.
It's like farming or anything else, right? You know, you put your energy in, and you plant berries, and you get berries, you know?
Whoa, yeah.
So, and then every now and then, there's a bad year.
That's yeah, you're right.
That's part of life too, right? Because I've had them, you know. I mean, I've been really even better off than I knew I was had I treated it properly and invested and stuff like that.
Sure, yeah, of course.
Young people don't know anything about that except you.
Yeah, yep.
But,
which you gave me great advice, you know.
But anyway, so you know, I've had, you know, a lot and seen and had it all just go away, you know, and be just like I was when I was, you know, be in the same situation I was when I was 19.
Oh yeah, you know? That's a scary thing.
It is, you know, like that. It can be a bit of a roller coaster ride, but what else was I going to do, man? What else am I going to do?
Well, yeah, right. Nothing.
I mean, not that there's anything wrong with other things, but am I going to choose to do what instead of play music?
Yeah, of course.
You know?
Which, what does that even mean? Like,
and I don't believe in the safe move. I don't believe in the, you know, fallback position. You know,
right?
It weakens you.
Because it makes you do what you're doing as your plan A only 75% because you're saving the 25% for B. That's not even happening.
I heard the same analogy for the first time, really, about investing. Not that we're going to go into investing, but, you know, this guy was talking about Bitcoin versus, you know, other altcoins, you know?
Yeah, so there's, what's the one?
Well, there's Ethereum is the most talked about, I think. But there are many. But, you know, this guy says, well, if you put part of your investment into Bitcoin, which has 97% of the market, and part of your investment into Ethereum, which has, you know, whatever percentage of the market, it's like, why don't you just put it all in Bitcoin?
Sure.
Because you're just diluting the possible gain, you know?
Yeah.
So it's the same, I think, with anything. It's like, you know, the more you put yourself into something, clearly, you know, the odds are more in your favor of success, you know.
It's funny too how when we were signing hundreds of records, and we were talking about the concept of buy and hold, and how that applies to Bitcoin. And you know, Bitcoin presently this morning, I believe, was like 20% down from where it was on Friday.
Yeah.
I put, you know, just a few thousand in, you know, based on your recommendation. You know, just putting in X amount per week.
Yeah.
You know, and just letting that go until.
Yeah.
Obviously, until it reaches, you know, maybe that aforementioned 6-figure place, you know, in the future.
Yeah.
But it's the same concept of of playing the long game, you know. And I think the thing that music, and I don't know if you've ever thought about this, there's a thing I think when you're a musician that kind of forces you to think longer picture. As opposed to somebody who's like trying to pursue a more traditional pursuit in life. I'm sure you're friends with people who are not musicians. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
And like
not too many though.
Oh, really?
Surprisingly. You know?
Interesting.
Almost everybody I know is a musician.
Oh, wow. Okay. The thing that's happening now, at least where, especially from COVID, is a lot of people are, stopping music. They're going into real estate. People are, they're moving back home to where they came from in the Midwest, and they're just going to stay there for a couple of years and see what happens. But music kind of lights this fire under your ass that like doesn't let you quite stop. And music's kind of like buy and hold in some way, where you just keep putting in the currency of time and just hoping that stock price rises over time, that it gains appreciation.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing to see that happen. Like on the way over here, man, I was just kind of going through some of the music that's happened from the start of your career to where we're at today, and then listening to some of the demos that you've sent my way from your most recent record. And it's amazing to see that evolving. That I don't know if evolvation's a word. Evolution's the word I'm looking for. The evolution is very real, and the appreciation of who you are as a person and a musician is so obvious. Is that striking you right now when you're wrapping up this record and working on that? Like how you have come in this journey and where you are right now in your process of creating music, that maturation that you have and the approach. Is that something that's apparent to you, or do you still feel very much like you were when you were in your mid-20s, when you were in your early 30s?
Well, I think, one of the things we were kind of addressing a moment ago about, you're willing to like your own work.
You have to.
So I think that's an attitude. I mean, I'm surprised that people, the people that I know who, like, I'm not happy with any of the records I ever made kind of attitude, I'm like...
What's the point
or
of that?
They never seem to like what they do, like really like what they do. They know they're doing something. They like doing it.
Yeah.
But But anyway, I said to Casey Wasner, my engineer and co-producer on this record, I told him yesterday, man, I think this might be my favorite record I've ever made.
Come on, it is.
So there's the confirmation of it, for me, at least on that musical side, and feeling good about. How everything has evolved, It's evolved, it keeps evolving. I mean, it's shocking.
Yeah.
And beautiful.
It must be after for how long you've been doing it and with how many people you've shared it with and created music with. Like, the fact that it keeps changing and evolving must be...
It's very gratifying. And every now and then there are these moments of doubt.
Even now?
Sure.
Really?
Yeah. When I started this very record, Kelly pointed out to me that I said one day to her that I was scared. So I'm like, wow, I'm going to make an instrumental album, and I think about, like guitar players.
Yeah.
There are some really incredibly facile fingers out there, man.
Facile fingers is the name of my next instructional series. That's great. I
mean, people who can play rings around me, in terms of their abilities on the guitar. I mean, I freely admit that.
Oh yeah.
But I have concentrated on something else. I mean, the facile finger is second to making really good music. So I can't play like a lot of other people can play.
Right. Sure.
And that's what scared me. I'm like, if I look at it like I'm making an instrumental album, if you look at it in a competitive way, who am I going up against? It's like, oh, these people, there's people out there that can play a lot more notes a lot faster than I can.
Steve Vai is the man who invented the science of perfect fast guitar playing.
Steve Vai. I actually think he was a student of Joe Satriani.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
It was Joe before
Surfing
him.
with the Alien. There's nothing. What's more cosmic?
Yeah.
Really?
He was just known second.
Yeah.
He was discovered second.
Steve definitely had more commercial success too. He huge. He really hit it in a beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be talking with Steve here shortly.
He's not out here, is he?
He's not. No, he's out in California.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's got his family. He's got his life out there. Mm-hmm. Not having, what's it called? People you're comparing yourself against. I mean, so what's the deal with that? How are you not doing that?
You mean, how am I not doing that?
Exactly.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Because that's so
And it's a very
easy.
good question.
Yeah, it's so easy to do.
And it's the fact that I've been doing this a long time.
Yep.
And
Yep.
if I don't trust myself, then who does, you know? It's like if I don't think I've been, you know, had the right approach all along,
Yeah.
you know, then you just it isn't broken, man. Don't try to fix it.
You've said those things to me dozens of times.
I
And
have.
It's so true, man.
Yeah.
And it's with me now when I'm playing live
Mm-hmm.
and when I have headphones on and the amp's in another room and we're recording a session.
Mm-hmm.
Don't overthink it. You gotta trust yourself. I remember we were doing a take of a song and you stopped right as the guitar intro was coming. It was like a 4-bar guitar intro,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, you press the talkback button and you go, Daniel, the tone's great. The amps sound awesome. It doesn't sound like you trust yourself. And yep, there it is. Let me just turn that trust knob up a little.
Is that right? All right.
Yes.
That's how it went.
And it went so true. And it was just that mental. So that's part of your process is trusting yourself in your creation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's a Zen, some Zen master said, confidence precedes all virtue. So confidence precedes everything. If you're not confident, you shouldn't even do it. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, to a certain degree, you know, of course, but I mean, like when you're learning, but I mean, again, after all these years, man, you know, if I can't reinvent myself, I mean, I can reinvent myself, but we were talking about this earlier, right? It's sort of you're reinventing yourself in a different way.
Yes, you are. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You're making adjustments, sort of, you know? And
Bonamassa said it. He doesn't say less is more, but that different is better.
different is better.
Different is better. So as long it's not it was at Cheesecake Factory one night and it was like he just said it out of nowhere too. I think we were talking about like Les Paul or someone like that. It was like that guy played
I see
so
what you're
much.
saying.
Yeah, and it's you know,
it's different.
You have to play different. It's not that less is more, but it's that different as you look at the macro of your work and your time and your career.
Right.
It's that the different is better.
Yeah.
You know, and this record, this music is certainly a departure from Tiger Walk and certainly different from Blue Moon.
Oh, big time.
Big time, right?
Yeah. That was a vocal album, you know. My songwriting was still sort of developing, you know.
Yeah. That's whoa, okay. Yeah. And now you're applying it to the art of instrumental craft, which is a whole different.
Well, it's nice to be back. Tell you the truth.
Oh, wow.
Because I like melodies, you know.
Yeah.
I like melodies, and you know, writing lyrics takes up far more time than writing music. Right? If you write a song, the lyric takes up far more time than.
Oh, it's like matching two socks together.
Music. Well,
words and music.
but you have to sew one sock more than the other one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's so true.
So
It is, yeah. It's very hard.
I think anyway,
difficult.
in my case, you know, it's like, you know, it's like, okay, I like the musical idea. That's not going to be a problem to develop this musical idea, you know.
No.
But writing that lyric's going to take me weeks.
Yeah, it's weird how certain muses come to us in different forms of ease. And it's like the muse of the guitar is so
Oh,
readily.
so maybe you have the opposite experience. Maybe writing lyrics is easier for you.
Well, I'm a big fan of Tom T. Hall, and he has this concept of relate, don't create, which seems to be very similar to what you were saying about Matisse.
Yeah.
Which is relate to the scope of reality that's happening before you, how that's affecting your senses, and relate to that, and let that be the medium of your creation. Not the concept of having to create something that's very, you know, fictional and illustrious.
Out of the blue, out of the air, like invent something.
Not many people have that level of abstract intelligence to where they can just participate in a reality that easily and draw lyrics from it like John Lennon could or Bob Dylan. Like we're talking about the ones.
Yeah.
And it's like, most it's just a matter of relating.
That's pretty much it.
I know.
There's two.
So true. Yeah, it's very real.
Oh, man, the Grateful Dead guy. What's his name?
Robert Hunter.
Robert Hunter, man.
Very absurd, you know.
Fantastic.
Very, very crazy. A lot of LSD.
Oh, yeah. Well, what can you say? But a lot of great lyrics came out of it.
A lot of great beauty.
His imagery is just fantastic, I think.
Well, you were just playing for me, which was the most random musical event that's happened to me, I think, in a while.
Good.
Was me playing your 6-string, 12-string Epiphone, and you're on the piano, and we start
335.
playing.
Yeah.
Oh, 335, rather. And you play Terrapin Station.
Right.
Absolutely insane. What a beautiful lyrical composition too that song is. Mm-hmm. You know, that seemed to be a different era of the Dead too. When you told me you had seen them, which was like in their earlier stages.
Yeah, I saw him in the 60s, you know.
Yeah, very raw.
Terrapin's like, I don't know, how deep is Terrapin?
Terrapin, I think, is like 77.
Yeah.
Something like that. 76, 77. That whole record's very weird because the whole second side kind of revolves around that one song.
That's right. Terrapin Station, like a little suite.
Yeah. Yeah, Lady with a Fan. It was that one section. And
He said that he wrote that whole thing in the car.
Are you fucking serious?
Yeah, he said he conceived that whole thing in the car. I mean, instrumentally, of course, you know, Jerry Garcia.
Oh, wow.
But he said he didn't even have a guitar, you know, or any instrument. He was driving for a long time.
I mean, that early
and he
Jerry.
wrote the music.
Oh, my God.
Pretty cool.
The thing that's very wild is early 70s. It kind of sounds just like Mike Bloomfield.
Oh, yeah. You know what? Bloomfield, I read a quote. Bloomfield said, I don't think he sounds like me because he listened to me. Oh. He felt that Jerry got there on his own. Bloomfield did.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a vote of confidence for Jerry there.
That really is. And a nice lack of ego.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's one thing I wanted to, and then we could wrap with this. There was a sticker that you had given me that I forgot I had. And I was cleaning out a bag the other day, and it fell out. And it's it's like...
Not after Eid Tab If'ul.
What's the deal, right? So I'm like, what in God's name is this sticker? And I'm staring at it for 3-4 minutes, and then it's like, oh, lack of ego, not afraid to be a fool.
Not afraid to be a fool, yeah.
What's the deal with that?
Also a Buddhist, one of our Buddhist teachers, that was one of the kind of things, suggestions on the path, you know, not afraid to be a fool. So you don't take yourself too seriously.
Right.
Yeah.
Seems like humility is almost like this divine solution to kind of figure out a way to get ego out of the way.
Picture.
Out of the picture.
way, yeah.
Out of the way.
Oh, that's another thing, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Is that that whole concept? I'm sure that's pervasive in your work now, but is that what started that whole concept, that whole train of thought for you? When was that becoming something you were actively thinking about?
Well, mid-70s.
Oh, so for a while you have tenure with this idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It you know, even those things, like not afraid to be a fool, was said by our Buddhist teacher, you know, back then. I wasn't ready for it. I still took myself too seriously. So it took a while for these things, many of these concepts, to sort of sink in.
A lot of young guys do. I see myself doing that all the time.
Yeah.
And the less I can do that, I get better results, but it's so hard to let go.
Yeah.
And not.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's that same fear of talking about trusting the music is the same. Not afraid to be a fool. Don't be afraid to trust.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think anything like that started really kicking in, honestly, until, you know, age 35.
Still very young, okay?
Relatively young.
Yeah.
But that seems like a long time to get the point. On the other side of it is like, well, but that's the way it is, you know. So what? But it's really like, honestly, I feel like, you know, what changes is when you actually start thinking of other people more. Because when you're young, you're thinking of yourself all the time.
All the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can hear it
Ad
in players.
nauseum.
Yeah, man. It's players that don't listen to the band. It's players that are stuck in their own realities when they're playing.
Yes.
And
I
you
mean,
can
like,
hear
that's a really good point. You know, I hadn't even quite thought of it that way, but it makes absolute sense. If you learn how to play the guitar via your ego, you know, then there you are, you know.
Yeah, wow.
And that was the one thing I, you know, of course, everybody thinks they're hot shit, you know, for a while.
Especially yourself, likewise.
That's what I mean.
You have every reason to.
But the music just was so much more important, you know. It was just I like that music, you know. Like the music sort of humbles you. The beauty of the music sort of humbles you.
That is the realest thing.
So you're always just sort of surrendering to the music, you know. And you, I haven't cared for a long time if I was sitting and listening to somebody or if I was playing. I'm just as happy to sit and listen to that guy as I am to get up there and play. I don't want to play. I want to listen to that guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
So that whole, it's about the music, you know?
In short and in large, that really is a statement that encompasses it all. It's that it's all about the music.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like that's like the doorstop that is there for you always. That is the realest thing. And it's all about it. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, hey, thanks for the time. This is astounding.
Always a pleasure.
Right on. Can't wait to hear the
pleasure.
record.
I'll play a little something if you like.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Mr. Robben Ford, y'all, one of my absolute heroes. And if you're a guitar player, he likely is one of your heroes as well. His new record is coming out very soon. Go out and check out A Young Man's Country, which is the first Cosmic Country full-length album that we put out August 7th of last year. Robben produced that album. Be sure to follow this podcast on Spotify. Leave us a review on Apple. Support the podcast on Patreon if you would like. It is $1 a month. And also, if $1 a month is out of your pay grade right now, even though we're getting that stimulus, it's crazy, we have a free Cosmic Country Club that you can go check out on danieldonato.com. We are touring this year. We are doing all the things. Thank you guys for listening. And again, remember this one. Those who look outside dream. Those who look inside awaken. Look both ways before you cross the street. Oh, not really good, but I'll talk to y'all later. Thank you. Stay patient, stay persistent, stay positive.